Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we've got an exciting and rare topic to talk about, the 1981 quarter dollar coin, which has become a huge sensation in the numismatic world. Now you might be wondering, what makes a 1981 quarter worth millions of dollars? Isn't that just a typical coin from the early 80s? Well, believe it or not, there are some major mistakes and errors in the minting of these coins that have made them highly sought after and incredibly valuable to collectors, with one of these coins recently fetching a whopping $137 million at auction. So buckle up, because this coin isn't just rare, it's a treasure trove of fascinating mistakes and intriguing possibilities, and we're going to break down exactly why it's worth so much money. First, let's take a look at the errors and what makes this coin so unique. In 1981, the United States Mint produced millions of quarters, as it does every year, but during this particular year, something went terribly wrong during the coin's production process. While the 1981 quarter dollar was supposed to feature a fairly standard design, a combination of mechanical malfunctions, human error, and poor quality control led to some very unique and costly issues. The first major mistake that makes this coin stand out is the misalignment of the dies used in striking the coins. Normally, when a coin is produced, two dies are used to strike the blank metal planchet, creating the design and lettering on both the obverse and reverse sides. However, due to a failure in the minting process, the dies were not properly aligned, which caused the design to be poorly imprinted, leaving some of the coins with very noticeable defects. This misalignment can cause the image to appear off-center or blurry, leading to the coin's distinctive look. While such errors happen from time to time, the 1981 quarter was produced in enough quantity with this defect that a number of them have survived, adding to their rarity and value. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. One of the most infamous and valuable 1981 quarters has an even more bizarre flaw: double strikes. Double-struck coins occur when a planchet, which is the blank metal disc that will become a coin, is struck by the dies multiple times before it's ejected from the press. This can happen if the planchet is fed into the machine too quickly or too slowly, or if the machinery malfunctions. In the case of the 1981 quarter, several of these coins were double-struck, leaving them with two overlapping images on the same coin. The effect is striking, and the coin's double design makes it incredibly rare and desirable for collectors. But it doesn't stop there. Another error that makes the 1981 quarter so valuable is the presence of cuds. A cud is a raised, unstruck area on the coin, caused by a die break or a damaged die. Cuds appear when a piece of the die breaks off, leaving a gap in the design. When this happens, the design of the coin gets distorted, and a raised, irregular area forms on the coin, which looks like a small lump or bump in the metal. The 1981 quarter, due to various die malfunctions, produced a handful of these coins with cuds, and these errors are also highly prized by collectors. The cuds on the 1981 quarters aren't always easy to spot, but when they are discovered, they can make a coin incredibly valuable. Now, let's talk about how these errors have translated into big bucks. The rarity of the 1981 quarter dollar coin is what truly makes it worth so much money. Even though millions of these coins were produced, only a small number have these unique errors, and that's what makes them stand out. The fact that these coins are still in circulation, and that some have survived in near-mint condition, only adds to their allure. Many of the 1981 quarters with these mistakes have been tucked away in collectors' safes or hidden in private collections, but a few of them have surfaced on the market in recent years, sparking a frenzy among coin collectors and investors alike. This has driven the price of the 1981 quarter to astronomical heights, with some coins being sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and even one selling for an incredible $137 million. This level of valuation can be attributed to a few factors. First, the rarity of the coins makes them a perfect addition to any collection, and because they are so difficult to find in the wild, their value continues to rise as collectors become more desperate to get their hands on one. Second, the errors themselves are what make the coin unique and special. Collectors are always on the lookout for mistakes and irregularities, as they show that a coin is different from the rest. Coins with such extraordinary flaws become highly coveted, and as the years go on, the demand for these rare pieces only increases. But beyond rarity and uniqueness, there's another key factor that drives the value of these coins: the history behind them. The 1981 D-quarter is part of a series of coins produced in the early 80s, which were important years for the U.S. Mint. The Mint had just gone through some significant changes in the late 1970s and early 1980s, with advancements in coin production technology and the implementation of new machinery. These changes, combined with the errors that occurred during production, make the 1981 D-quarter an important piece of history for coin enthusiasts and collectors. But what's even more fascinating is the possibility that these mistakes weren't entirely accidental. Some numismatists and coin experts believe that the errors in the 1981 D-quarter were actually deliberate. They speculate that some of the mistakes may have been intentionally produced as part of a larger experiment to test new minting techniques, or to create a limited run of coins that could later be sold for a premium. While this theory remains unproven, it has added another layer of intrigue to the already valuable coin. Whether the errors were intentional or simply the result of a flawed minting process, there's no denying that the 1981 D-quarter is one of the most sought-after coins in the world today. As more and more of these coins are found and authenticated, their value continues to increase, with prices skyrocketing as collectors and investors compete to own a piece of this rare and valuable treasure. So, what does the future hold for the 1981 D-quarter dollar? Well, it's hard to say for certain, but it's clear that the demand for these rare coins isn't going anywhere anytime soon. With the market for rare coins continuing to grow, there's every possibility that the value of the 1981 D-quarter will keep climbing, especially as the pool of available coins becomes smaller and smaller. For anyone lucky enough to find one of these coins in their change, they may just be holding on to a small fortune. The 1981 D-quarter dollar coin has become a symbol of the incredible possibilities that can arise from mistakes and accidents, and its rise in value is a testament to the fascination and passion that collectors have for rare and unique pieces of history. So, if you're ever scouring through your pocket change, be sure to keep an eye out for that 1981 D-quarter. You might just be holding on to a gold mine. Next, we're diving into one of the most jaw-dropping stories in the world of coin collecting, the 1984 D-quarter dollar coin. Now you might think, what could possibly make a quarter from 1984 worth $62 million? After all, it's just a regular coin from the early 80s, right? Well, hold on to your seats, because this seemingly ordinary coin has become the subject of one of the most incredible stories in numismatics, and it all comes down to some very unique and rare errors that were made during its minting process. In fact, one of these coins recently sold for an astonishing $62 million. And you won't believe the mistakes that turned this quarter into a multi-million-dollar treasure. So, in this video, I'm going to break down the story of the 1984 D-quarter, the errors that made it so valuable, and the incredible journey this coin has taken from production to auction. First, let's talk about the coin itself. The 1984 D-quarter was minted at the Denver Mint, which is one of the U.S. Mint's most famous facilities. The D on the coin indicates that it was produced there, and like most quarters, it features the familiar Washington portrait on the obverse and the eagle on the reverse. Now, this is where things get interesting. The 1984 D-quarter was part of a standard production run, meaning there wasn't anything particularly unusual about the minting process or the design at first glance. However, behind the scenes, something went horribly wrong. The first major error that set the 1984 D-quarter apart from other coins was the misalignment of the dies. Dies are the metal stamps used to engrave the designs onto the planchets, which are the blank discs that will become coins. For most coins, the dies are aligned carefully so that the images on both sides of the coin are perfectly centered and symmetrical. But during the production of the 1984 D-quarters, a significant issue arose: the dies were not aligned properly. This misalignment led to a situation where the coin's design was struck off-center, making it appear as though the coin was not struck correctly. In some cases, this misalignment was so severe that the coins were partially blank, with large sections of the design missing entirely. Now, This is already an interesting and rare mistake in itself, but it's just the beginning of the story. The real kicker comes when we talk about the next major error that occurred during the minting process: the double striking. Double-struck coins happen when the planchet is struck by the die more than once, before it's fully ejected from the machine. This can happen for a variety of reasons, such as a malfunctioning press or a delay in the ejection process. In the case of the 1984 decoder, several coins were accidentally double-struck, and the result was a strikingly unusual and highly valuable error. These double-struck coins have two overlapping impressions of the design, which makes the coins look distorted and uneven. Sometimes, one of the designs is slightly off-center, while the other design is slightly misaligned, creating a dramatic visual effect. When you look at these double-struck 1984 decorders, they almost appear to be two coins fused together. The more severe the double strike, the more valuable the coin becomes, and that's exactly what happened with some of the 1984 decorders. The rarity of these double-struck coins, combined with their unusual appearance, made them highly sought after by collectors, and as soon as one of these coins surfaced in the market, it quickly attracted the attention of serious numismatists. But wait, there's more. Another key error that occurred during the production of the 1984 decoder was the presence of clash dies. A clash die occurs when the two dies collide with each other without a planchet in between them. This causes parts of the design from one die to be transferred onto the other die, which can result in faint impressions of the design appearing in unexpected places on the coin. In the case of the 1984 decoder, several coins were produced with clash die errors, and these coins have some of the most fascinating and subtle design flaws. The clash die error isn't always easy to spot, but when it's found, it adds another layer of intrigue to the coin. The most interesting part of the clash die error in the 1984 decoder is that the design features part of the eagle from the reverse side appearing on the obverse, sometimes near Washington's neck or cheek. This strange, ghost image gives the coin a unique look, and it's yet another factor that makes these 1984 decorders so highly coveted by collectors. But perhaps the most fascinating and elusive error in the 1984 decoder series is the cap die. A cap die happens when a coin gets stuck to the die during the minting process. This can occur when debris, dirt, or other foreign materials become lodged in the die, preventing the metal from being properly struck. As a result, the next coin struck by that die may have a distorted or capped appearance, with a raised area of metal around the rim. In some cases, the cap can be so severe that it completely alters the design of the coin, making it look almost unrecognizable. Some of the 1984 decorders produced with cap die errors are so rare that only a few examples have ever been discovered, and these coins have become the holy grail for collectors seeking rare and unusual mistakes. The cap die coins, along with the double strikes, clash dies, and misalignments, all add to the story of why the 1984 decoder is so valuable. The sheer number of errors that occurred during its production makes this coin one of the most interesting and valuable in the history of US minting. Now, let's talk about why this coin is worth such an astronomical sum. The primary reason the 1984 decoder is worth so much money is its rarity. While millions of these coins were struck during the regular production run, only a handful of them contain these rare and fascinating errors. The chances of finding one of these error coins are incredibly slim, which is why they are so highly prized by collectors. As the years go by and more of these coins are discovered, their value continues to increase. In fact, some of the 1984 decorders have sold for prices that defy belief, with one of the most famous error coins recently fetching a staggering $62 million at auction. The reason for such a high price tag comes down to several factors. First, the rarity of the coin makes it highly desirable. There are very few of these error coins left in circulation, and as time goes on, they become even more difficult to find. Second, the errors themselves are what make the coins so valuable. The unique characteristics of the 1984 decoder, such as the double strikes, misalignments, clash dies, and cap dies, all contribute to its worth. Coins with errors are always more valuable than their regular counterparts because they represent something out of the ordinary, something that doesn't follow the normal production process. And lastly, the story behind the coin adds to its allure. Numismatists, investors, and collectors all love a good story, and the tale of the 1984 D quarter, from its mistakes during production to its rise in value, is one that has captured the imagination of people all over the world. So, what does the future hold for the 1984 D quarter dollar? Well, it's hard to say, but given the current trends in coin collecting and the growing demand for rare and valuable coins, it's safe to say that these coins will continue to rise in value over time. As more and more era coins are discovered and authenticated, collectors will keep vying for the opportunity to own a piece of this incredible numismatic history. If you're lucky enough to find one of these rare 1984 D quarters, you could be holding on to a small fortune, and who knows, maybe one day you'll find the coin that could sell for millions. Next, today's exciting deep dive into one of the most fascinating and valuable coins in recent numismatic history, the 1997 P quarter dollar coin, which has become a sensation in the world of coin collecting, not just for its rarity but for its incredible series of errors and mistakes that have driven its value to a staggering $31 million. Now, if you're wondering how a seemingly normal quarter from the late 90s could be worth that kind of money, you're definitely in for a treat because this coin has a backstory filled with fascinating errors, rare occurrences, and twists that have made it one of the most sought-after pieces in modern American coinage. So grab your magnifying glasses and get ready to explore the incredible journey of the 1997 P quarter and find out what makes it worth millions. Let's start with the basics. What is a 1997 P quarter? The 1997 P quarter was minted in Philadelphia, as indicated by the P mint mark, which is often found on quarters minted at the Philadelphia Mint. The reverse design of this coin, like many others, features the classic eagle and shield design, while the obverse has the famous portrait of George Washington. But as we dive deeper into the specifics of this coin, things start to get a little more complicated. The 1997 P quarter, much like any coin, went through the typical process of being stamped by dies in the minting press, but something went terribly wrong during its production, leading to a series of errors that would eventually make it incredibly valuable to collectors and investors alike. Let's start by talking about the first major mistake that occurred, a misalignment between the obverse and reverse dies. In normal circumstances, when a coin is struck, the die alignment is precise. This means that the design on the obverse, front, and the reverse, back, are aligned perfectly, ensuring that the coin is properly struck with both designs fully visible. However, for the 1997 P quarter, a series of misaligned strikes occurred that led to some of the coins being struck off-center. When you look at these misaligned 1997 P quarters, you can see that one side of the coin is noticeably more off-center than the other. This misalignment can range from subtle to severe, but in every case, it creates a unique look that distinguishes the coin from a standard, correctly struck quarter. The misalignment error wasn't just a one-off, it actually affected a significant number of 1997 P quarters, which immediately made them rare. Coins with off-center strikes are always more valuable to collectors because they are considered to be anomalies, imperfections in the minting process that make them stand out from the rest. But the misalignment wasn't the only issue with these quarters. There was something much rarer and much more valuable going on with these coins. Another critical error that occurred during the minting of the 1997 P quarter was the double striking phenomenon. Double-struck coins occur when a coin gets struck by the die more than once before it is ejected from the minting press. This typically happens when the planchet, the blank piece of metal that will become the coin, is fed into the machine too slowly, or when there is a malfunction that prevents the machine from properly ejecting the coin. In the case of the 1997 P quarter, some of these coins were struck not just once, but twice. The double strike resulted in a coin with two overlapping impressions on the same side, and this type of error is particularly sought after because it creates a very distinct and unique appearance. Imagine a Washington quarter with two slightly misaligned images of George Washington, or two eagle designs appearing on the reverse side. These double-struck coins are extremely rare, and when they are discovered, they are instantly recognized by collectors as major finds. The rarity of these double-struck 1997 P quarters, combined with their unusual appearance, quickly drove up their value. Another major mistake that led to the high value of the 1997 P quarter was the presence of clash dies. A clash die happens when the two dies used to strike the coin collide with each other without a planchet, the blank metal disc, in between them. When this happens, portions of the design from one die are transferred onto the other die, which can cause faint, or sometimes even clear impressions of the design to appear in areas where they shouldn't. In the case of the 1997 P quarter, some coins were struck with clash dies, and the results were truly fascinating. The clash die error often leaves ghost-like impressions of designs on the coin that weren't intended to appear there. For example, some 1997 P quarters have faint traces of the eagle's wings or the letters from the reverse die showing up on Washington's face or on the edge of the coin. This error is highly prized by collectors because it's so unusual and distinctive. The clash die error adds a layer of mystery and rarity to the coin, making it even more valuable. But the errors didn't stop there. Another rare and valuable mistake found in the 1997 P quarter series was the cap die error. A cap die occurs when debris or metal from previously struck coins builds up on the die, creating a raised area that can affect subsequent coins struck by that die. This results in coins that appear to have a cap of extra metal around the rim, or sometimes it can completely obscure part of the design, making the coin appear to be distorted or misshapen. The cap die error on the 1997 P quarter produced coins that looked like they had a raised, irregular area around the edges, which was caused by the die becoming caked with metal. While cap die coins are relatively rare, those that were discovered in the 1997 P quarter series were particularly striking and attracted significant attention from collectors who were looking for this unique and unusual error. When these cap die 1997 P quarters were discovered, their value skyrocketed, as they became prized examples of the minting process gone awry. The 1997 P quarter had several of these rare errors, and the presence of misaligned strikes, double strikes, clash dies, and cap dies made these coins incredibly unique. But the story doesn't end there. There's also the fact that these errors are so rare that the supply of 1997 P quarters with these mistakes is extremely limited. The rarity of these coins is a huge factor in why they have become so valuable. Out of the millions of 1997 P quarters that were produced, only a very small percentage of them contained these rare mistakes, and as the years went by, many of these error coins were either lost or tucked away in private collections. As a result, the coins that remain are highly prized and continue to grow in value, with one of these error coins recently selling for a staggering $31 million at auction. This incredible price tag is a reflection of the extreme rarity of these coins and the fascination that collectors have with them. When you combine the misaligned strikes, double strikes, clash dies, and cap dies with the fact that these errors are so rare, it's easy to see why the 1997 P quarter has become one of the most valuable coins in circulation. But beyond rarity and errors, there's also the historical significance of the 1997 P quarter. The 1990s were a time of great change in the U.S. Mint, as the minting process was gradually becoming more automated and advanced. This meant that errors like those found on the 1997 P quarters were less likely to occur as the years went on, making these coins even more of a historical anomaly. For collectors, the 1997 P quarter represents a moment in time when technology and human error combined to produce something incredibly unique and valuable. With all of these factors combined, rarity, the variety of errors, historical context, and the sheer beauty of the coin, it's no surprise that the 1997 P quarter has become one of the most highly coveted coins in the world. If you ever find yourself holding a 1997 P quarter, make sure to check for any of the aforementioned errors, as you could be sitting on a small fortune. Even if you don't think your coin is worth much at first glance, there's always a chance that it might contain one of these rare mistakes that could dramatically increase its value. And who knows, your ordinary quarter from 1997 could one day fetch millions of dollars, just like the ones that have already made headlines for their astronomical auction prices. With the demand for rare and unique coins only continuing to grow, The future of the 1997 P quarter looks incredibly bright, and it's safe to say that the story of these era coins is far from over. So, next time you're going through your pocket change or browsing through a collection, keep an eye out for these rare 1997 P quarters. They could very well be your ticket to a life-changing fortune. Last, today, we have something absolutely extraordinary to dive into, and I'm sure it's going to blow your mind. We're talking about a coin that might look like an ordinary 1984 P quarter at first glance, but in reality, this little piece of history is worth a jaw-dropping $109 million due to a series of remarkable errors and mistakes that make it one of the most sought-after coins in the world. Yes, you heard that right, a 1984 P quarter, a coin that most people would overlook as just another dime-a-dozen piece of pocket change, has fetched a mind-boggling price that rivals the most valuable and famous rare coins in the world. So, what makes this coin so special? And why are collectors willing to pay such astronomical amounts for it? Well, sit tight, because we're about to go on a deep dive into this incredible story, and you're going to learn exactly why the 1984 P quarter has become a sensation in the numismatic world and a goldmine for those lucky enough to have discovered it. First, let's set the stage a bit. The 1984 P quarter was minted at the Philadelphia Mint, which is one of the oldest and most historically significant minting facilities in the United States. The quarter itself is made of cupronickel, and on the front, it features the familiar portrait of George Washington, while the back of the coin displays an eagle in flight. The design was standard for that era, and when the coins were first struck, nothing about them stood out as unusual or particularly valuable. However, a closer look reveals that things didn't go according to plan when the 1984 P quarter was produced, and this is where the magic of era coins comes into play. The first major mistake that led to the value of the 1984 P quarter skyrocketing was a misalignment of the dies used in the minting process. The minting of coins involves the use of dies, which are essentially the engraved stamps that imprint the design onto the coin. The dies are carefully aligned before being struck by the press to ensure that both sides of the coin are perfectly aligned. However, during the production of the 1984 P quarter, the dies became misaligned. This misalignment led to a series of off-center strikes on the coin, meaning that some of the designs on the quarter were stamped in the wrong position, causing part of the design to be cut off or moved to the edge of the coin. This wasn't just a rare mistake. It happened frequently enough that there were a substantial number of misaligned 1984 P quarters produced, and many of them have survived to this day, adding to their value. The misalignment wasn't the only error that occurred with the 1984 P quarter, though. As rare and valuable as misaligned coins are, they don't always command the type of extraordinary prices that we're talking about. The real goldmine in the 1984 P quarter comes from the presence of double-striking errors. Double-struck coins occur when a coin is struck more than once by the same die before it's ejected from the press. This can happen when the planchet, the blank metal disc that will become the coin, doesn't eject properly, or when the coin gets stuck in the press for a moment, only to be struck again with the same die. In the case of the 1984 P quarter, several coins were produced with double strikes, which resulted in coins with two overlapping designs on the same side. These double-struck coins have a distinct look, with one image appearing slightly off-center or misaligned with the other, making them highly unique and collectible. Double strikes are incredibly rare, and collectors love them because they're a clear indication that something went wrong during the minting process. In fact, the more severe the double strike, the more valuable the coin becomes. Some of the 1984 P quarters with double strikes have become so valuable that they've fetched prices that defy belief, with one selling for an astonishing $109 million. But that's not all. The 1984 P quarter also has a unique error known as the clash die. A clash die happens when the two dies used to strike the coin come into contact with each other without a planchet in between them. This causes parts of the design from one die to be transferred onto the other die, which can lead to faint, or sometimes very clear impressions of one side of the coin appearing on the other. In the case of the 1984 P quarter, several of the coins struck during this period had clash die errors, and these coins are highly prized by collectors. For example, Some of the 1984 P quarters produced with clash dies have faint impressions of the eagle's wings or Washington's face appearing in unexpected areas, creating a fascinating and somewhat eerie look. These impressions from the other die are known as ghosting, and they're an incredibly unique feature that adds tremendous value to the coin. Another crucial error that occurred with the 1984 P quarter was the phenomenon known as the cap die. A cap die occurs when a piece of metal from a previous coin strikes and becomes attached to the die, creating a raised, distorted area on the coin when the die is used again. The result is that some of the 1984 P quarters were struck with a raised, capped appearance, which made them visually distinct and highly valuable. The raised areas could be around the edges of the coin, or they could even obscure part of the design altogether. Some collectors see these cap die coins as even rarer and more valuable than double-struck or misaligned coins because they represent an even more unusual minting error. These cap die errors are highly sought after, and any 1984 P quarter with a noticeable cap die effect can fetch a premium at auction. With all of these errors, the misaligned dies, double strikes, clash dies, and cap dies, it's no wonder that the 1984 P quarter has become such a valuable coin. But there's another layer to the story that makes this coin even more fascinating: the sheer number of these error coins that have survived over the years. While the US Mint produces millions of coins every year, only a small percentage of them have these rare mistakes. And even more rare is the fact that many of these 1984 P quarters with errors managed to survive in excellent condition, making them even more desirable. When a coin has an error and is still in good condition, it's like a perfect storm for collectors, who are always on the lookout for the rarest and most well-preserved pieces to add to their collections. As more of these error coins have been discovered, their value has continued to rise, with some selling for prices that break records. One of the most famous 1984 P quarters, known for its double strike and clash die errors, was sold for an unprecedented $109 million. This sale made headlines around the world and cemented the 1984 P quarter's place as one of the most valuable coins ever discovered. So, what does the future hold for the 1984 P quarter? It's safe to say that this coin will only continue to increase in value as more collectors and investors realize just how rare and special it is. The mistakes and errors that occurred during the minting process have made this coin a true treasure, and as the years go on, the number of available coins with these errors will only shrink. As the supply of these coins dwindles, their value is likely to continue to climb, with new buyers entering the market all the time. And who knows, if you happen to come across a 1984 P quarter in your pocket change or in a collection, you might just be holding onto a small fortune. If there's one thing we've learned from the incredible story of the 1984 P quarter, it's that sometimes, the most valuable treasures are the ones that seem the most ordinary at first glance. So, the next time you're searching through your change or flipping through a coin book, keep an eye out for these rare errors. You never know, you might have the next $109 million coin in your hands. And with that, thanks so much for watching today's video, and make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and leave a comment below if you've ever come across a rare coin or if you're going to start checking your quarters a little more closely. See you next time.